Welcome to the REV Your Agency podcast, the most candid and authentic life insurance and annuity podcast that is hell-bent on helping you be more honest, ethical, productive, and profitable. Tune in and you're going to get exclusive access to the industry's top tools, tips, tricks, and resources from the biggest and most effective producers on earth. You're going to hear real-life stories of agents that went from nothing to something, zero to hero, and how changing the lives of their clients has changed their own lives financially. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and share it with someone you think will find value as well. This is the REV Your Agency podcast, by the way.
Cool.
A2C, we're doing that one March?
Something like that.
You want to reschedule? My calendar was screwed up. I had to go back in and redo some of my automation. One of the backlinks was broke. So I have some more that's sooner if you want.
Yeah, whenever. I've got time before March, or, we could wait until 2025 like you had me originally scheduled. Was it March of this year or March of next year?
It was March of none your business.
Hey, you want to schedule to do the podcast? Yeah, sure. All right, well, I don't have anything for the next 9 months, but month 10, we're golden. We're in there.
Well, that little feature, schedule in this window, not for 9 months, but not past 10 months.
Yeah, no, not there. It's like the avocado ripeness meter, where it's like, not yet. Oh, you missed it.
And if there's any seats available at an IMAX theater anywhere in the United States, I'm not available anywhere. It's a hell of an automation. So, all right, dude, let's get into it. So, yeah, REV Your Agency is more insurance-based, more, all about insurance.
Perfect.
In other words, we don't want to know about Peter. We want to know about what Peter does. What do Peters do?
Or what Peter would?
What do Peters do?
Several things. They're a multi-purpose tool.
Well, let me stop.
Oh, wait, not the A2C podcast. Got it. Okay.
No, what I want to know, my big interest in having you on, Peter, was the fact that despite what some may say, you were not the most incredibly awful agent ever. However, you had some things left to be desired for yourself out of your own career in agency, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what I'd like to know is just kind of your own story. How did you get into insurance? What was it like in the beginning? What was it like all the way through, to where you are now? This isn't an advertisement for anything we do. It's just your story and what kind of value can folks find in that. That's the biggest thing I want, because I think there's a ton of value there in addition to a lot of things. And I think folks would like to know as well that you're not just this, I do nothing but insurance 7 days a week. Like you're a professional drummer. You teach professional drummers. I got a video of that over the weekend. My hell, Imagine Dragons couldn't do it better. I'm just saying. That was so awesome. My boys loved it, by the way. So yeah, I just think there's so much value you have to give, dude, that I can't not just, my platform isn't big, here it is, and it's yours for half an hour. Help me help some folks,
Cool. So, yeah, I didn't really find insurance. Insurance found me. Before I opened my agency, I was working for a Fortune 500 company, Icon Office Solutions, and I did contract sales. So if you own your own equipment and you wanted us to service it and offer you supplies, if you were in Southern California, San Diego, or Hawaii, you went through me and I wrote the contract.
So this was like the printer company for Dunder Mifflin, but not actually Dunder Mifflin.
Not so well. We did sell paper and office supplies as well, but the main focus was copiers. And originally when I started in the supply department, so I was legit selling paper as an upsell. But it was somebody, they had a maintenance agreement on their equipment and they needed toner. So they'd call up and say, hey, ship me one of these. Yep, not a problem. We'd pop it in there and get it sent out. So that's what I did, right? And Icon got purchased by one of the manufacturers that they distributed for, Ricoh. And when they did that, it went from being a Fortune 500 company that was US-based to being owned by Ricoh, which is a Japanese-based company. And they had a vision for where they wanted to take the company, right? And really what they wanted to do, they were just trying to keep Canon from purchasing it because we were the world's largest independent servicing organization and distribution channel for anybody. So Cassandra and I got married in 2012, November 2012, and then February 1st of 2013, they brought all the contract sales reps into the office and said, hey, you're done. Now, they kept me along. So there was like 40 of us that did what we did across the country. They had scaled it back already once from 40 down to 15. And I made that cut. And then they scaled it back even further when they brought everybody into the room and said, hey, you're all done. I'm like, okay, we'll see you later. Hey, Peter, wait here for a minute.
Except for this redhead.
Yeah. So they kept me around for like another 6 months past when they let everybody else go. Mm-hmm. And in that time, they said, we're going to try and find you something here. And I loved that gig, man. That job was awesome. It was the first sales job I'd ever had. It was fun, man. I made the most money I'd ever made. Up to that point, there was 1 month where I signed up the city of Los Angeles. I literally made more money in that month than I had made my entire last year working for the Boys and Girls Club, And so I took my old boss out to lunch and told him that, not a dig on him or the club. I just wanted him to know that I was doing well.
Where did you take him? Is this a shout out Manuel's type of moment, or
where did we go? Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, it wasn't nothing crazy, But so anyway, they kept me around for like another 6 months. They said they were going to try and find something else for me, but I wasn't going to wait for them. So I put together a resume and I started looking for jobs kind of on my own. And I didn't really find anything that had the flexibility that I had, that had the income potential that I had. There was a lot of things that I really liked about that gig. And about 2 months into the job search, I realized that I was doing a disservice to myself because I was looking for jobs, but jobs were not looking for me because I hadn't put my resume anywhere, right? So I posted my resume to Indeed, and a couple weeks later, I get this email from this guy that says, hey, came across your resume. I'd be really interested in talking to you. You have a lot of good skills and traits that I think would be applicable to the business that I'm in. If you're open to having a conversation, I've got this great opportunity for the right person. Let me know. Okay. So I reply back, yeah, I'm available. How does Friday at 4 sound? It's like, perfect. Cool. So Friday at like 3:59, my phone rings. I'm working from home that day. And this really nice, soft-spoken older gentleman on the other end of the phone, just a real calm voice, real soothing, just not real salesy. And Cliff Wilson. So Cliff and I talked for like 45 minutes. And I finally stopped him and I'm like, hey, man, maybe I missed it. What's this amazing opportunity for the right person?
What is it you do?
Yeah. And he's like, oh, it's a career in insurance and financial services. And my response was, and I quote, and I got quiet. And Cliff felt that through the other end of the phone. And he was like,
for listeners, for context, because I'm aware of the time you got in the business, about that time, you had like, not going to name names, but like some really big buy term and invest the difference, like blowing up and then blowing up.
Yeah.
And then you had some really big cash value stuff where all the people left buy term and invest the difference and went over to this cash value company and it blew up and then it blew up. So like you and I both kind of came into the business right in the middle of that period there.
Yep. So, he told me what it was and my response was, and he handled it perfectly. He's like, I'm detecting some hesitation. Why don't you tell me what you're thinking? And I'm like, Cliff, I don't have any warm, fuzzy feelings about insurance people at all. And he kind of chuckled. And he's like, well, Peter, that's normal. He's like, but let me tell you why it's going to be different for you. It's like everything that I do, everything that I train my agents to do, we do from an advocacy approach. So if it's not in our client's best interest, or if it's not in my agent's best interest, I just don't do it, period. Which is pretty much the perfect answer to that question for me, right? Because I had some preconceived notions that insurance people did what was best for them, not necessarily what was best for the consumer, for their clients. So, okay. So, if it's okay with you, I'd like to maybe set up some time for us to sit down and talk face to face. My office is in Chandler. Great. So we scheduled some time. Cliff was nothing if not thorough. He put me through 9 interviews before he hired me. Like,
Yeah.
dude is the definition of hire slow, fire fast, right? And he made me bring Cassandra to one of those interviews because it was important to him that if I was going to be getting into the industry, that she know, number one, that she knew what she was getting into, what we were getting into. And number two, he could feel out the person that I lived with, because if I was married to a crazy person, he knew he was never going to get 100%.
Dude, I love that because at the end of the day, like, I don't have a statistic on this, but there's a significant number of folks that don't make it in this business because of the lack of support from their spouse, because their spouse wasn't on board in the first place. And they might have been like on board, like, oh yeah, give it a try.
Yeah.
Or, oh yeah, give it a try.
Right up until the paycheck doesn't show up.
Right. And so it's like they weren't really on board, because unless the expectation's been appropriately set, there's like on board is an elusive thing.
Yeah. And going back to that advocacy thing, I mean, that's what Cliff was. He really did walk the walk. You know, he wanted to make sure that it was in our best interests. So yeah, he put me through, like I said, nine actual interviews, you know, in addition to along that way, once we got a little closer to the end, it was like, okay, here's some information so you can start doing some self-study. Don't start practicing for your test yet, but start doing some self-study. And then once I got through the 9th interview, it was like, okay, I think this is a good fit. If you think it's a good fit, I'd like to move forward with bringing you onto the agency. So the thing is that Cliff and the guy that I'm with now, Bruce, Cliff actually hired Bruce into the business like 30 something years ago. Cliff hired my other mentor agent, Lars, into the business 30 something years ago. And that was one of the things that I really admired the most about him. Was I've seen a lot of managers come and go. I've seen a lot of agents come and go. I mean, I was looking at some stuff online today, and in the last 2 months, I've seen probably, I don't know, 10 different posts from now former agents that it just didn't work out. So they're back to their managing restaurants, or they're in construction, or they went back to whatever they did in their former life, or pivoted to something else to make ends meet for their family.
Yeah, which is fine, but like probably not who you lean on for success in this business.
Right. And that kind of is a testament back to the process that Cliff put me through when he brought me in. Was I would be willing to bet that almost none of those people went through the same process and had the same kind of mentorship that I did. You know, a lot of, unfortunately for our industry, I think that's one of the biggest downfalls, is a lot of managers just throw shit at a wall and see what sticks, you know, law of large numbers. And eventually you're going to find some quality in there, but that's not how Cliff or my new MLGA, Bruce, functioned. They were all about making sure that they found the right people, because they didn't take lightly the fact that they were going to be disrupting this person's family and livelihood and just their life, you know? So I opened my agency in 2013 with American National and got off to a decent start. You know, I didn't quite hit Blue Vase, but I was pretty close, right? Blue Vase, for anybody that doesn't know, is it's a fast start award for life insurance.
That's an industry award. That's not an American National award.
Yeah. Yep. So I had enough premium, but not enough apps. And, you know, had for the first, 6 years or so, a good start to my agency. I was building a book. I was learning a bunch, got involved with NAFA and started doing some stuff with them. I went through the Lilly classes, lots of good opportunities. You know, that was one of the other things that Cliff really afforded to me. Was he's a past national president of NAFA, which he could have told me that on day one and I wouldn't have known what that meant. But what that ended up meaning was, like, that dude testified to Congress on behalf of the entire insurance and financial services industry. Like, he's the GOAT. Real freaking deal. You know, those Life Happens videos? Like, he's one of the people that selects which videos get picked for that. He's been on the Life Happens board. He's been on all sorts of cool industry things, right? Just doing good for people, for the industry, for clients and agents, whether or not he's ever even met them. And then 2020, Cliff retired. He had 50 years in the business. He retired, and I fell into a pitfall. I fell into a trap. And that trap for me was that when you have people working for you, that works when you work too. I hired my first CSR. I didn't need one before that because either my book wasn't big enough, or we had Joyce, Cliff's wife, was the in-office CSR, and she helped with a lot of stuff. So that bought me a lot of time before I had to really do that. Well, they both retired in 2020, and I hired my first CSR, and she was awesome. She did great. She was doing so well that I felt so comfortable with what was going on in my business that I took full advantage and showed up to the office at 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. And I'd take 3-hour lunches, and I'd go home at 2 o'clock. I did all of the things, all of
the math, and it's like you were never actually there.
That's not too far from it. But the thing was that my business didn't really suffer a ton immediately because the service work was getting handled, right? Looking back on it, what I should have done was use that newly found time to do some prospecting and get in front of more people and do more of the sales activity that Beth didn't do, right? Beth was just taking care of client requests and stuff, and if I needed something quoted. So I watched my book basically taper down. It was like 2020, I had not a stellar year. 2021, I had my worst year ever in the business because I was so comfortable in how things were going. And like I said, taking full advantage of that newfound free time. And I think the other thing was that I was teaching drums, right? And I had taught drums part-time outside of my business the entire time I've had my agency. I did it before I had my agency. It's something I'm really good at. It's something that I, honest to goodness, love doing. But I was never, because I had that work mistress of teaching drums, and I get paid pretty well for doing that too, not insurance well, but
a little slut on the side.
Straight up. And I think that's another place that agents, no, in all seriousness, I think that's another place that agents blow up. It's like, I'm just going to do this thing on the side because it's my safety net. Right. And so they never go all in. They never go all into their agency because their heart and their mind is somewhere else. It's on that side business. Like, oh, I'm going to do real estate for when the insurance stuff isn't going well. It's like, you can't be 100% at two things. It's just not possible. Impossible. And looking back on it, Cliff had tried to get me out of doing the drum stuff literally since like day one. And I wasn't ready to hear it, And so going into 2021, or coming out of 2021, I guess, the company minimums for life production that year were like $3,500 in paid life.
For the year.
And January 1st, I had like $127 of paid life. It was like, I'm not going to be able to keep my contract unless I get some stuff going. So I got some stuff going, and I got my I think I wrote like $4,000 in the month of December, right? So obviously I was capable. I got it done when my back was against a wall, but it took having my back against a wall and a gun to my head to get it done that year. And so I was on some lists. I like being on lists. I don't like being on those kind of lists, like the minimum production lists and the watch list to terminate contracts. Those are not fun lists to be on. So I got it done. And January 1, I literally sat down and started brainstorming. It's like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing differently next year, but I know what I'm not doing. I'm not doing that. That's never going to happen again. Again, I don't know what all I'm going to change yet, but I know that I'm making wholesale changes. And so I started kind of looking around at some different stuff, and I just happened to get the most well-timed email on the face of the planet. It was a marketing email for Rush, and the only reason I clicked on it was because I saw a last name on there that I recognized. It was from somebody Ivy. right? It's from Cam. I didn't know Cam, but I knew the Ivies. I knew that family. His dad was an American National general agent. It's like, oh, I think he's with American National, I think. So I started looking into it. I clicked on a link that I would never have clicked on, right? I used to teach internet safety classes. You don't click on links from strangers. Fortunately for me, I clicked on this one. And I went through and read what the program was all about. And it's like, hey, if you want to do an additional $100,000, you're going to make an additional $100,000 in income in the next 12 months, this is the way. And if you don't, we'll give you your money back. Like, don't really see where the downside is here. So I took that and I showed it to literally anybody that would look at it. Hey, what do you think? I'm thinking about signing up for this thing. What do you think? And they had a couple questions, and I went through and I asked the gal that I was talking to about doing the onboarding some of those questions. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, I think this is where I need to be to get where I want to be. I did not have the money in my account to pay for the stuff at the time, so I put the whole thing on a credit card. So got signed up, got in. There's a couple other stories there too.
Yeah, there is.
I might have ended up paying for my friend Cole's membership too. But yeah, that's how I found Rush. That's how I found the REV community. And from there, within 12 months, I made like an extra $120,000 over the next 12 months. Not made $120,000, made an extra $120,000 above and beyond what I had done. I got a bunch of my production-based commissions reinstated because my production had taken off. The first year I was in Rush, I wrote double the most life insurance I had ever written. I qualified for my company's trip for the first time ever. Literally had my best year ever, start to finish.
How was that trip, dude?
It was a blast, man. It was a blast. That was one of those things where every year the company sends out this little care package to get agents excited. It's like, hey, this is where we're going. And they send some kind of little tchotchke trinket thing along with it. It's like a bottle of sand for going to Cabo, right? It's like, oh, it's cool.
The sand came from Lowe's, right?
Yeah, I know that. But Lowe's got it from Cabo. So, but every year I'd get this stuff in and Cassandra would be like, hey, so we going on this trip or what? It's like, yeah, we're going on. But I had no plan on how to get from here to there, right? It was a wish. It wasn't a goal. It was like, I didn't write anything down. I didn't have anything tangible on how to get from point A to point B. So I qualified for the trip for the first time ever. And when insurance companies put on production-based trips like that, they don't skimp on stuff. I got a 1099 for it at the end of the year, but it's a trip that I would not have paid for myself. And if I did take Cassandra on that trip, we would not have done things to the level that they did, So fast forward a year past that, I got a little more involved in the REV community, started helping some other folks hit some goals and get some headway, literally by just turning around and helping them work through the same stuff that I had worked through, right? I did the work the way that it was laid out. I watched a module a week, and then I did that applicable work, right? And then the next week I watched another module, and I added that work onto it. And I didn't take time away from my business to do that stuff. I think that's the big one, right? I didn't take time away from my family or my business to make it through Rush. What I did do though was I stayed up late and I got to the office early. Like all of that time, I'm probably back to zero now. All that time that I missed those 2 years when I was slacking off, I made up for that time in 2022. But it paid off. I mean, those things, not only did I have a good 2022, but last year, I had my best year again. And I did like another 15% more life production than I did the year before. I wrote like 8 times as much annuity business as I had ever written. My P&C was up again. It's compounding, So we qualified for our next trip. And not only that, but I hit I had a huge milestone. I qualified for MDRT, which is another one of those things. It's kind of like qualifying for one of those trips. It's like, man, I would really like to do that, but I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have a game plan. I didn't have goals. It was just like, oh yeah, I would like that to happen to me. And I think that that's where a lot of agents struggle is that, it's like you say, the difference between where you're at and where you want to be. It's just the work in between, right? And a lot of times we underestimate what the work looks like. But a lot of times we're doing the wrong work too, And so that was the thing that it really did, the REV programs really did help me turn my career around, because we, every single year at the end of the year, minus like the first 2 or 3 years in the business, first couple of years in the business, everybody likes a new job. It's fun. It was exciting. It was stressful, but it was my first time owning my own business. So that was cool. But from like years 4 to 8, at least 2 or 3 times a year, I would tell Cassandra, like, I think it's like, I'm not sure this is where I want to be. It's like, I like what I'm doing. I don't know if it's sustainable. And, there's a lot of stress that went along with that. And so that's been the biggest change, man, is the last couple of years in December, everybody has this big push. Agents work under deadlines. So it's this big push at the end to get stuff done in December. You know what I did on the last production day this year, December? I took a nap. I took a nap straight up, because I had hit all of my goals for the year and then some. And it's like, I'm going to stay home today. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to hang out with my boys and Cassandra and just get ready for New Year's. So
we kicked December off right. We kicked that whole month off the right way.
Yeah.
That was such a good trip.
Well, that's another story, but case in point, like I might have bought like an $800 dinner for some friends in Nashville one night, and Cassandra may or may not have had a teeny tiny little panic attack, because a few years ago doing that might have meant that Christmas would not have happened in the Woodhouse. $800 would have made or broke Christmas, and this year she was like, she pulled me aside afterwards. She's like, hey, are we going to be okay? And it's like, yeah, we're going to be fine. And she said something to me after that trip. She's like, I know I panicked a little bit when I saw the bill from the restaurant. She's like, and when you told me that, that we're going to be fine, she's like, it's a different feeling than it was a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. She's like, I don't feel like I have to ask you if this is still where you want to be, if this is still the right choice, if this is still a good fit. She's like, it's a totally different animal now. It's like, yeah, this was the goal. That was the goal the whole time. I just finally had an instruction manual on how to get where I wanted to be to.
And sending chills down my freaking spine, Peter. I think that's probably one of the most powerful things, at least as a straight male in 2024, that I can, probably the most powerful thing is my woman, my wife, looking me in the eyes and being like, okay, I trust you, whatever it is. Like, I just trust you.
Yeah.
But knowing that it wasn't the words, it wasn't the smooth talk, it was 365 days of everything that happened before that.
Yep.
It's pretty crazy, man. What do you think the most significant thing that you've done in the past 12 months is, whether that's insurance related or not?
Most significant thing that I've done in the last 12 months. I think from an insurance standpoint, the most significant thing that I've done has been just getting involved with the coaching stuff, with the Parma modules that we turned out. I mean, it started with just running like one Revel call a quarter, right? But that was one of the things that, Matt Daly jokes about me talking to like 72 people a day. And he's not wrong. It's like 71 or something. But I think that's been the most gratifying thing, is that I probably could have done, no, not probably. I could have written more business this year. And I will write more business this year than I wrote last year. But the most gratifying thing has been that I know that I helped people write more business. And I helped other people hit goals that they had never, ever, ever dreamed they could do. So that's been the most gratifying thing, is that it's not just me on the journey, right? It's been me. It's the whole a rising tide lifts all ships, right? I'm going to good places and I am taking my friends with me. Period. And I have a lot of friends, and if I know that, people say that knowledge is power, and there are some people out there that feel that statement means that once you know something, if you keep it to yourself, you have power over other people because you are withholding the information. And that's not how I think about that. I think about it as that the real power comes in taking that information and getting it out to people. The more people that can have the information, the more successful, the more people can be. It's the worst possible thing that could happen is that knowledge dies with you. That didn't help anybody, but to put the information out there and teach others and help perpetuate the information that's the real power, is understanding that if somebody else is successful, it doesn't take anything off my plate. There's more than enough pie for everybody.
So if you had, just in closing here as we wrap up, my good friend, Van Mueller. I know Van's a friend of yours, and I love Van. Super excited to hang out with him next week. It's going to be,
too.
As he once told me, nobody gives a shit what you're teaching. He didn't say shit. I think he said a dang, a darn, a gosh golly. Nobody cares what you're teaching. They care what they learn. They care about what they can learn, right? It's not about what education you're giving. It's about the learning that's received.
Yep.
So with that being one of the most significant things you've done in the last year and the last couple of years, you've been leaning into that more and more and helping us. And I don't know that I'll ever find a way to repay you for everything you're doing, Peter. I'll keep working on it and I'll see what I can do to figure it out. But if that's one of the most significant things, right? Mm-hmm. Knowing that it has nothing, the most significant thing has nothing to do with what you can teach. It has to do with what folks are willing to and able to learn. What would you share with folks to make them more willing and able to learn? If this was your last opportunity to share anything, you open up that office door and there's a stiff breeze. That stiff breeze is carrying fumes from a nearby spilled over tanker. They're toxic fumes. It's like Fern Gully.
Yeah.
And Peter's dead. Just like the little fairy is. No, it's a Fern Gully reference, folks. Come on.
Yo, my name is Bate. My logic is erratic. Yeah, I got it.
This is your last opportunity. If it were, what would you share with folks so that they learn? Not so that someone else is willing to teach or that you're willing to teach her, but so that they will learn.
Yeah, I think it's probably that inspiration goes a lot further than education, right? So that's one of the things with doing the drumline stuff that I was always really successful with was I would go to a program that was literally like brand new high school, had 2 kids in the drumline. And in a couple of years when I left, they are top of the food chain in Arizona, competing nationally, and there's 50 kids in the program. And a bunch of my other friends they're better drummers than I am, and some of them are better teachers than I am. They would always ask, they're like, how do you do that? Like, how do you get the kids in the door? And it's like, man, it's just, it starts with one, right? But with that one, I'm not teaching them drumming. Like what I'm doing is I'm showing them stuff on where they could get to. Right. I'm trying to inspire them and show them, hey, look, I know that right now we're standing in a band room in Gilbert, Arizona. Right. But if you do the stuff that I'm going to show you and you do it the way that I'm showing you, and you got to put in the effort, but if you do that thing, I can promise you that you will be able to go write your own ticket anywhere that you want to go to. Anywhere. Right. But step one is get them excited about the thing that they're doing. So I would show a bunch of videos and I started a Facebook group for the high school kids. And it was like, hey, I can't be your friend on Facebook, but you guys can all join this group, and I'm going to drop some cool videos in here.
You didn't want to be that creepy uncle?
No. But I wanted a way to get the information out, because a couple times a year, when like in the summer when the drum corps stuff's going on, or in the winter when like the winter drumline stuff's going on, there's all sorts of cool content on the internet. And I wanted a way to share that and get that out, right? And that was the kind of stuff that when you show, I mean, like Peter's a prime example. Not me. My little boy's name's Peter too, for everybody that don't know me. I haven't sat down and physically taught my kid how to drum. Anything, right? I'll do a drive-by. I'll walk by and go, hey, buddy, try and grab the stick like this. And then out the door I go, right? Out of the room, not out of the door. But what I do is I make drums and music accessible to him, right? Because I don't want to push it on him. But I want it to be there for some self-discovery, for him to play with, for him to enjoy and have fun with, right? And then anytime he says, hey, Daddy, do you want to drum? You bet your ass I want to drum. Yeah, let's go, right? But I show him videos, and he hears me listening to videos, and he comes over and watches, like, what are you watching? Like, this guy, Ellis Tapario, he's like he's got to be an alien, right? That dude is just the real deal. But it's the same thing I did with the high school kids. It's like, hey, come check out this cool thing. He'll watch a video with me, and then I go back to scrolling whatever I'm scrolling on, and he goes and grabs some drumsticks. We literally have drums in like, I don't know, 80% of the rooms in our house, including the garage. They're everywhere. Piano right in the entryway. He wants to pull the lid over and start playing piano. Cool, right? But I don't ever walk over to him and go, hey, let's go play the piano, right? It's just leading by example, showing him some cool content, and getting him inspired to do this thing. You know, so I think that's the thing, is that inspiration goes a lot further than education does on getting somebody started. Once you got the spark, though, that's where the education piece kicks in, the formal education portion of it. Because it doesn't matter what it is you're doing. If you don't enjoy doing it and you're not excited about doing it, you're not going to do it 100% of the way. You're going to have a part-time job doing something else instead of being 100% your agency.
Damn. It's a whole lot of heavy, dude. Whole lot of heavy. Really good heavy, though. Not like, somebody passed away heavy.
Yeah.
So, man, I appreciate you. Anything else you want to share before we call it a day?
Man, I think that's it. I think that's good.
All right. Well, Peter Wood, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Sure thing, buddy.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man.
This has been another excellent episode of the Rev Your Agency podcast. Remember something. Nothing happens if you don't do the damn work. So take what you've got from this, take what you've learned, and go implement it today. It's not about having everything. It's about having one thing and implementing it every day so that you can take your production, your agency, and the lives of everybody around you to the next level. If you could use some help with it, hit us up at revagencysyndicate.com and jump in. We run a mastermind that is dedicated and hell-bent 10 times more than this podcast could ever be into helping you have the education, collaboration, and accountability that you need to go to the next level. Whether you are captive, independent, whether you're life only, or you focus on multiple lines, it doesn't matter. We're here to help. Let us help you.